Hello, friends, and welcome into the Cowboys Report. I am your host, Tom Downey. We have the roster cuts that have been announced by the Dallas Cowboys and the initial 53-man roster. So we're going to break that down here for you. We'll begin, of course, with the players who were cut, with some notes as to who could maybe end up on the practice squad. Some of these, of course, I'm sure you guys saw on Friday. Nate Hall, the undrafted rookie out of Northwestern, he is gone. Casey Redfern, also gone. Juwan Bushell-Beatty, Darius Jackson, and Lucas McNeil. Maybe Jackson a little bit, but no real surprises on that list. Next up, Jake Campos, he has been cut. Marcus Lucas, he is gone. I will make note, by the way, for Marcus Lucas, he does not have any practice squad eligibility, so he cannot make it to the Cowboys practice squad. Reggie Davis, he is next up here. Justin Phillips, who many of you were upset about overall, so just keep that in mind for the Dallas Cowboys, that he could be on the practice squad, but I know many of you were disappointed by that. George Iloka, he was also cut. That one, not the biggest surprise either. It was very clear when he did not play in the final preseason game and that Donovan Wilson was an issue. He was not going to make it. Other cuts here. Ricky Walker, that one could also be a practice squad candidate. Tristan DeCoud, he's not going to make the team here either. Drew Scott, well, that's the long snapper, just the camp long snapper. He was never going to make it anyway. Then Ryan Juracek, who is the backup fullback. I've heard some buzz about him being on the practice squad, but frankly, I don't really know why anyone would bother on that front. Next up is Jordan Shunn. Now that one, we knew he was competing for a roster spot. We'll break down the running back position more in depth in a second. The Cowboys are only carrying two. That's a pretty good indication of they think they're going to get Zeke back. More on that coming up in the very near future. All right, next up on the cuts. This one pains me dearly. Actually, several of these pain me dearly. Daniel Wise, he has been cut. We will see if he makes it to the practice squad. I'm not that optimistic. Donovan Olumba, that's the one that actually bothers me the most. He should have been on this team. I would not have gone so thin at the cornerback spot. We'll break down where I think they could have kept Olumba and cut others. Michael Jackson, this one doesn't actually surprise me all that much because he has been hurt. Dallas is going to try and sneak him onto the practice squad. Next up is Mike Weber, the running back. That one, again, not a huge surprise. We expected it. He could be a practice squad candidate. Now, Mike White, he's next up here. Okay. Oh no, whatever. Mike White didn't make the team. Not the end of the world there. There's been some buzz. He wants to find a spot on a 53-man roster, which my response is, go for it. I don't need him on the practice squad, frankly. He can go somewhere else for all I care. All right, Taron Christian, also cut. Could be a practice squatter. Same with Mitch Hyatt. Then a couple of noteworthy releases because the Cowboys went deep on the offensive line, not so deep at other spots. Cedrick Wilson, he has been cut. The Cowboys' plan, at least, is to sign him to the practice squad. Also released, Chris Covington, the linebacker. Jalen Guyton has been cut. He could also be a practice squad option. And then your final two roster cuts here. That is Kyle Cairo, the linebacker, and Shakir Soto. And I'll make note, you're doing the math in your head. Wait a minute, Tom, that's not enough to get you down to 53. Not even if you include, for example, the release of, or the IR spot, for, not the IR spot, excuse me, the PUP spot for Noah Brown, which we'll get more into. There are injuries that we'll break down in a second. But first, guys, I want to know from you, which release ended up surprising you the most here by the Dallas Cowboys? Let me know in the comment section. I am disappointed by the Daniel Wise release. I'm not overly surprised by it. The two biggest surprises for me, frankly, were Donovan Olumba getting cut and then Cedrick Wilson. I thought the Cowboys were going to go 6 deep at wide receiver. That's not the route they went. Now we'll break down more in depth here some other options for the Dallas Cowboys as it comes to players who could be options in terms of bringing back once guys go on IR, short-term IR. But those are the ones that surprised me the most in the end. All right, some players with injuries now. Some of the injuries we know, some I am unaware of what they actually were. Now, Jamil Showers, I'll make note, is not a straight-to-IR player. He is a waived injured designation, so he could come back and revert to IR. That's not a guaranteed option, though, for the Dallas Cowboys. So Showers and his hamstring, he has been waived injured. Daniel Ross and John Vay Johnson, both of whom outright placed on IR. Ladies and gentlemen, that is called an IR stash, and there are several of them this year by the Dallas Cowboys. Tyus Powell also was designated as a reserve or a waived injured player, so he's not guaranteed anything on that front. Chris Westry outright to IR. The IR stash wins again for the Dallas Cowboys. They love to do it. I love it when they do it. It's a smart play there. Allows you to almost have an extra half a practice squad in Daniel Ross, in John Vay Johnson, in Chris Westry as well. Other players with injuries, so most of these are going to go on IR. Cody McElroy was waived injured, much like Showers and Powell, so he's not guaranteed to go on IR, but he will revert there if no one claims him. And then maybe there's an injury settlement as an option as well. Noah Brown, he is going to continue on the PUP list, open up the season. We'll see if and when he comes back, but right now he is not guaranteed a spot. And then a true IR stash, Jalen Jelks, makes it on to the Cowboys injured reserve list. So that's a nice way to stash a late-round pick. And then Cody Wichmann as well. Those are the players who didn't make the team, but they were placed on IR instead. All right, guys, question for you. Do you love the Dallas Cowboys even when they don't make the moves maybe that we want them to make? If the answer is yes, like this video. If the answer is no, like my Eagles fans out there who always watch, please stop watching. Why bother? I don't know why you would spend your Saturday or, for example, your Friday night doing all of that and watching the Cowboys trying to troll when no one pays attention. But if you're answering yes, give me a like on this video, guys. Now we'll take an in-depth look. You've done the numbers in your head, but more of an in-depth look as to who is actually on the Cowboys team. They're only carrying 2 quarterbacks. That is it. Dak Prescott and Cooper Rush. Mike White, Taron Christian, they have been cut. They are not making the team. Now at running back, and this one's very important because of what it means. The Cowboys are only carrying 3, and that includes the fullback, Jameis Olawale. Tony Pollard, Alfred Morris, that's it. Darius Jackson, Mike Weber, Jordan Chunn were all cut. This comes, by the way, off the heels of the report from Adam Schefter that talks between the Cowboys and Elliott are intensifying, and both sides want a deal done this weekend. For starters, it is time for this deal to just be done already. I am tired of it. I am tired of the holdout. I am tired of the spin from both sides. I just want it done. Get it done, Zeke. Get in camp. Get it done, Cowboys. Get Zeke in camp. Let's be done with it. That the Cowboys, by the way, are only carrying 2 backs, they think this deal is going to get done. That's what that indicates to me. All right, guys, so my question for you now. What day does Zeke report to the Dallas Cowboys? Is it on Sunday? Is it on Monday? Is it on Tuesday? Is it week 3? Let me know in the comments section what day that you think Elliott reports to the Dallas Cowboys. I see a lot of questions in here, by the way. Keep them coming. We will do a mailbag in a little bit. Now on to the wide receivers. The top 3 of those were locks. Cooper, Gallup, and Cobb. Tavon Austin was pretty safe. I thought Dallas was going to go with 6. They only go with 5. Cedrick Wilson gets cut. And, by the way, going with only 5, a pretty good indication of how the Cowboys feel about Amari Cooper's health. At tight end, only 3. Jason Witten, Blake Jarwin, Dalton Schultz. Since Cody McElroy was waived injured and Marcus Lucas does not have practice squad eligibility, you could see Dallas look into other players to sign to the practice squad. Now, here's where things get interesting for me. The Dallas Cowboys went incredibly deep at offensive line. Way more than I expected. They didn't carry 10. They carried 11 offensive linemen. That's a shocker to me. Tyron Smith. Also, to the guy who said Lance Lenore was cut. Wow, yeah, he was cut like 3 weeks ago. If not a month ago. Tyron Smith, Connor Williams, Frederick, Zach Martin, Lael Collins. Those guys were locks. Cam Fleming was safe. Connor McGovern could be a short-term IR candidate. Keep that in mind. And then keeping Joe Looney and Xavier Suafield. I was surprised they kept Brandon Knight. I don't really love that one, to be quite honest there. That was a bit of an unexpected move. They also keep Adam Redmond. Maybe you could still see a trade, but I would be surprised if the Cowboys ended week 1 with all 11 of those linemen still on the offensive line. That's a lot of bodies to carry. All right, defensive tackle. We'll include Tyrone Crawford on here, but there's also Antoine Woods, Malik Collins, Tristan Hill, and Christian Covington. No real surprises there. As I mentioned earlier, they did cut Daniel Wise. Hopefully, he can find his way to the practice squad. Then at defensive end, Robert Quinn is on the suspended list, so he does not count against your 53-man roster, but I'm going to list him on here anyway. DeMarcus Lawrence, Tyrone Crawford, and then Dorrance Armstrong, Kerry Hyder, Taco Charlton, and Joe Jackson. There might have to be a decision to make when we get to week 3 of the NFL season and Quinn comes off the suspended list because somebody has to get moved. All right, guys, question for you now is who do you want on the practice squad? Let me know in the comments section. I want Daniel Wise on there. I don't know if you can get him, but I want him on that team. I think you can get him on there. I think you might see guys like Jalen Guyton make it to the practice squad since John Vay Johnson was put on IR. Daniel Wise, Olumba, Mike Jackson, Jordan Chun, those are the top candidates there for the practice squad. And I will make note, by the way, based on my mentions and even the comment section here too, you would think that every player the Cowboys cut is going to not make it to the practice squad, right? There will be a player or two, but there's a much higher chance of players who were cut to actually make it to the practice squad than general fans want to admit there. There is a very good chance that multiple guys are going to make it that far for the Dallas Cowboys. 6 linebackers made the roster this year. Sean Lee, Jalen Smith, Leighton Vander Esch, Justin March, Joe Thomas, and Luke Gifford. Now, I will make note, in order to put a player on IR and later bring them back, you have to carry them through the initial roster cuts. So Luke Gifford could still be an IR candidate, and maybe then they bring back Chris Covington. That's an option. I'm not saying they're going to do that, but that is something to watch out for and pay attention to for the first couple of really hours here, plus practice squad and waiver wire and all that kind of stuff there. Only 6 linebackers, though, right now for the Dallas Cowboys. All right, the defensive back depth chart then. I was surprised Olumba was cut, but if you've watched the show, you knew that C.J. Goodwin was going to make this team. He was safe. And you knew that Michael Jackson probably wasn't going to make this team just because of the way the numbers worked out. And I will make note, I think Donovan Olumba missed out on this team because the Cowboys felt the need to carry Darian Thompson because of Donovan Wilson's ankle injury. More on that in a little bit, but the injury, unfortunately, is more severe than originally thought. So just keep that in mind. The Cowboys go 5 deep at safety instead of what I had suggested of 6 deep at cornerback and 4 deep at safety. And then finally, your special teams. Case Redford got cut on Friday, made it very clear that Maher and Jones were safe. We'll see if things change in the waiver wire period with the Packers. I'm not seeing what they end up doing on the kicker side with Mason Crosby, but I'm sure that's out at some point in the near future. Tony Pollard, Tavon Austin, maybe you'll have Jordan Lewis, Randall Cobb, no Cedrick Wilson back there. So those guys, those are going to be your main special teamers. All right, folks, let me know in the comments section which release surprised you the most. I'm going to go with Olumba. Daniel Wise up there in terms of disappointment. Maybe it's Cedrick Wilson in the end, but those are the releases that surprised me the most, folks, in the comments section.